Some leaders leave footprints, others leave libraries. You're tuning into the Authors on Mission podcast, where industry giants become literacy legends. In every episode, we talk with authors who turn their brilliance into books that transform lives. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Welcome to your authorship experience. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Authors on Mission podcast, the podcast committed to sharing top-tier insights and strategies employed by established experts in their respective fields to achieve success, all while aiming to inspire authors. I'm your host, Danielle Hutchinson, Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome a really remarkable guest who embodies our mission of turning expertise into impactful storytelling. Michael Evanoff brings 3 decades of high-stakes security experience to the table as a former U.S. Assistant Secretary of State, a 3-time Fortune 500 Chief Security Officer, and a veteran of the Diplomatic Security Service with postings across the globe. He's recently channeled that wealth of knowledge into his gripping thriller, High Value Targets, which offers readers an authentic glimpse into the dangerous world of diplomatic security operations. Michael, it's an honor to have you on our show, and we're excited to know about how you've turned your exciting experience into a page-turning thriller. So, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. I much appreciate it. It's very kind of you. Very warm. Thank you.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you on too. For everybody listening today, right before this call, Michael and I were, shooting the breeze, talking a little bit about his experiences, and he's had quite a few, and it's some really exciting stuff. And I think today, if you're a listener to this podcast, you're going to learn a lot about turning personal experiences into the book while maintaining confidentiality and also, getting the right message across as well, and many more insights. So, Mike, I would like to start off today with a question, just a little bit about your backstory here. You had an extraordinary career spanning 3 decades, What drew you to this field? How did your journey begin? And that might be a loaded question, but I'm curious to know what got you into all this.
Yeah, it is a good question, and thank you for it. I grew up, both my parents were Washington, D.C. police officers. So both my mom and dad met in the academy back in the day, and I grew up with their stories, their good and bad, and basically brought into an environment of wanting to give back, protect, right? Policing is basic at the heart of it is protecting and giving back and serving cause that's bigger than you. When I was in school, I went to a great school. I went to Eastern Kentucky University, which I chuckle because I call it the Harvard of the South. But be honest with you, it is a great school for the schooling that I went for, which was police science and terrorism studies. Back in the mid-'80s, when terrorism was starting to get big. Remember, terrorism they've always had. Terrorism has been in the 40s and 50s and 60s, but really culminated, we saw it gel in the late 60s and the 70s. And then it really came to bear in the 80s when we, diplomatic security and the U.S. Department of State, lost a couple embassies, especially in Beirut and Kuwait City. We lost a couple ambassadors, literally killed in the line of duty. So there was an issue of protecting our diplomats through terrorism. The United States had a target on its back, and the closest target they can go to is a U.S. embassy in their own country. This is before hitting our country, obviously. And so diplomatic security is on the front lines of protecting our embassy, our people, our diplomats, but also trying to find how we can go after these people, where we are literally the tip of the spear out in these locations. So for me, that was a pretty cool thing to begin. And in the mid-'80s, Congress said, enough is enough. We've lost too many embassies. We lost too many ambassadors. We need to really professionalize and put money in the Department of State's Diplomatic Security Service. And our bureau was born. Before, it was just the Office of Security, which is fine. It was great, but it still had the lineage of basically gates, guards, guns, and dogs, right? That's it. where they needed to professionalize it and bring in college educated folks to really professionalize and really bring this a step further than what it was. And that doesn't mean the people that were there before us are not good. In fact, they're outstanding. These folks are former military intelligence, police officers that know what they're really doing. But I think they needed a new generation. Every generation has a new generation coming up, just like mine was the boomer generation in the 80s. But, you go to the millennials, you go to the X's, and going forward. So right now, if you tried to get in diplomatic security, it's harder than when I came in. That's just the part. I mean, it's just the issues are a little bit more complicated. And I know that because I came back as an assistant secretary. I mean, I literally came on at 23 years old, not knowing anything about diplomacy or overseas stuff, other than one time I went overseas with my grandmother. But other than that, it's learn, learn, learn. And I was very eager to learn and put myself forward with it.
Thank you for sharing that backstory. I mean, first off, it's really cool to know that, you kind of started when things were just kind of kicking off. And then through the many years, you watched it evolve into what it is today, where, it's just been reformed so much. And likewise, it's interesting to know that, you also grew alongside the company too, it seems like. You just kind of dedicated yourself to the craft and really just grew your knowledge from that. I'm curious to know, in your book, your protagonist, Zach Turner, seems to kind of embody the same dedication and resourcefulness that, would be required of this job. How much of yourself did you put into his character?
Oh,
I mean, for example, he lives in a bachelor pad and is just determined to continue. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, listen, I didn't get married till I was in my mid 40s. And so, I mean, literally, I came on at 23. I bounced to 8 U.S. embassies overseas, and I did that single. And it wasn't that I wanted to be there. I literally wanted to meet somebody and share that life with somebody. But the problem was, all my embassies were high threat, were basically critical threat. I mean, start with the Philippines in the early 90s, and then go to Sarajevo and Zagreb during the civil war there, establishing an embassy in a war zone, then move further down to Islamabad, Pakistan, before, during, and after 9/11. That was the epicenter of terrorism at that time. Everything evolved between Pakistan and Afghanistan. It's basically a nest of where a lot of this stuff was coming from. And so obviously, Osama bin Laden was caught in Pakistan. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was caught in Pakistan. So I got to see firsthand all the experience that I experienced from day one, from 1985 through 2001, up to that point, to learn and be able to be at the tip of the spear, literally. And I'm fortunate to be that. I say that I'm older now, but I have a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old. But you know what? That's cool. It's fine because it keeps you young, number one. It's something I didn't think. I mean, obviously, I would think I'd have kids in college by now. But this didn't happen, and I'm okay with that. But to your point, Zach Taylor is 98% me in that book because I wanted to capture the training I went through, what Zach went through, the posts that he went through, and also the challenges and the invite and the infighting and the political issues that I experienced, right? It's not, you have both enemies inside, enemies and outside, right? It's trying to discern that. And that was what I wanted to do in this book, kind of capture what it's like to be at the U.S. Department of State, working in a multinational environment, but also with multi-government agencies like FBI, Secret Service, CIA, all are basically brothers in arms. And basically 95%, we always get along. We absolutely go along. But there's always a 5% rub, right? When you get alpha people that come together, there's a lot of strong opinions going forward, right? How the operation will go down, how are we going to target, what we're going to do. And so it was a cool thing, and you learn to get along with people. I kind of brought this book to bear, like this was a journey for me, but I put it in a protagonist with Zach Turner because I put Zach Turner growing up in Texas. because I would see that him playing college football like I did, right? Undersized, but has a, basically he's a tenacious guy and wants to do the right thing. And that was what I wanted to do. And that's basically me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, well, thanks for answering that. I can see how, you really did take your own personality and experiences and weave it into the story while also getting the message across, which is really awesome and not very easy to do either. What I'm noticing is what seems to be a pattern is the act of balancing in your role. I mean, you had to kind of balance, the landscape of international diplomacy while also pursuing justice. You had to balance, well, Zach at least balanced his experience with Navy SEALs and also Delta Force, and also balancing relationships between, different agencies. I mean, you mentioned before that you had got like friendships with those, but that's kind of showed in Pat Hundley's role, as I saw. So I guess I just wanted to point that out. It's really cool that you have like that element of like balance throughout your book too, and it's quite the struggle, I'm sure, to not only write about but also to have experience.
And you're right, Danielle. It's part of being in the diplomatic security service. The key word here is diplomatic, right? You learn by working in the foreign service that you can project, but you also got to hear what other people are saying, how to work with others, right? And so even though we're on the law enforcement arm and the diplomats on the other side, you do have to work together and get the mission done. And so for me, it's learning that very early on. And I learned it playing football. I mean, literally be on a team concept, right? Being a student athlete taught me a lot. I mean, you learned time management. You learn, listen, some things go your way, some things don't go your way. But also at the end of the day, we're a team and we're trying to win for something higher than ourselves. So that's the key of having been serving a higher self than you, right? That is key. I mean, that is a great segue in understanding, hey, I did this in college. Now I want to do it in real life. I wanted to give back, actually. I wanted to protect, like my parents did.
No, I love that you are inspired by that aspect of your life, the football and your parents' background as well. I think that, it just goes to show like not only your character, Zach's background too, but also your own, of course. So, kind of branching off that, we were talking before the podcast started, you were telling me about how, your purpose for the book wasn't necessarily to, get a lot of readers necessarily, but more so to like get this experience off your chest and get out into the world and share with others. I'm wondering if you could perhaps elaborate on that for our listeners today so that they can also see your vision for it and perhaps relate to it based on their own writing experiences too.
Yeah, thank you. I think if you go back to March 17th, 2002, when I got that phone call from the Marine security guard at Post 1, that there was a church bombing and our people were in that church. And I got the call early on and I just rushed into the scene. I was one of the very first people to get there, even before the Pakistani services did. And a billow of black smoke coming out of this, everybody rushing out that could rush out, and me rushing in, right? Because my people are there. I'm like, oh my God, this is happening. And then you learn through your training that got you through that. And the book talks about the training I was very fortunate to be part of. Very elite, tier 1 asset training to basically go and triage the people that were hurt and understand, okay, something bad happened here. It was in a diplomatic enclave in Islamabad, Pakistan, that was supposed to have been protected. But somebody breached that, came in wearing a landmine on his chest, and also with grenades in a packed church with over 95 people in, and threw grenades down the aisle in the back of the church where the exit was. And then when people that were not hurt running back or were wounded running towards, then he detonated himself. So it was a horrific scene, absolutely horrific scene. It was so bad, I could still taste and smell the cordite, the taste of blood. When blood is spilled that much, actually it's a copper taste. that actually hits your nostrils and you can actually taste copper. I did not know that. This is a thing. It actually did happen. You can, and obviously I've talked to other people saying, oh yeah, that does happen. And then trying to get the people out, triage who's alive, who's not alive, and then trying to preserve the crime scene, right? Because we are law enforcement. Then my team started showing up. Then I was very fortunate to have a CIA EOD team there at the time, Explosive Ordnance Division, to kind of render some of the grenades that didn't go off safe, right? So we're not stepping on them. And then just establishing a crime scene and getting the information back to the ambassador, getting back to Washington that this did happen. And we're addressing it right now. So all of that in hours and hours, I was there at 6 hours. And then when I finally came back to the embassy to brief the front office, it was like pure adrenaline, right? It's just like, this happened, this happened, this happened. I think this is the case here. We're looking at that. And then you realize you kept that internally. And I kept that internally for the last 22 years. I mean, literally, at that time, it wasn't, hey, Mike, we're going to pull you out to do rest and recover or a PTSD, right? There wasn't that. It was just, you couldn't do it, right? I mean, it was never offered per se, but they did, Diplomatic Security did bring in a flyaway team to be able to talk with me and just basically sit down and just go sit with a couple beers and just go over, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? Kind of assess me personally. But I at that time, I didn't want to leave. I mean, I'm right there. I want to go after the person that did this, the group that did this. And so this book is purely just unloading myself, just coughed up, vomited all what I went through, then spun it from that event, that real life event, to a segue into a fictional event that uses real life events behind it.
Well, first off, I just want to commend you. I know it could not have been easy to relive all of that. I mean, you mentioned it was kind of bottled up inside for that many years. And first off, that's a remarkable feat to have been able to overcome in general, but then also to, be rehashing it. And I understand you did work with Authors on Mission. It helped you to develop that story. And I'm sure just telling it to the team and, all of that was just reliving it. So a lot of strength coming from that. But of course, the other challenging aspect that comes from such experience like this is, keeping these authentic elements of the attack, for example, without revealing sensitive information. That must have been a whole other ballpark too. I'm wondering if you don't mind sharing some of these challenges with the audience today and how you overcame those in the writing process.
Yeah, it is a good question. I think it's pretty plain. I mean, there was an event, a bombing, and there were people that died that were my friends, their colleagues, right? The person in the book is a real life person that did not die per se, but in the book he did. But I used that basically drive to hunt whoever did this for my friend, right? But in a lot of ways, all the people that died. So to go back to it, we had 2 embassy people die and 5 others were killed from other missions, other embassies. And so having me to respect them, but also not obviously reveal anything in that, this was a purely, how can I capture what I went through without basically revealing the behind the scenes stories? Because at that time, Danielle, we were in a fight. We were in Kabul, we were in Afghanistan, and the people, the Pakistanis that wanted to fight with the Afghans did go to Afghanistan. In this case, the bomber and his crew did go there. But what people don't realize is that the Pashtuns, meaning the Afghans, and the Urdus, which are basically Pakistanis, don't necessarily get along very well. So this group wanting to give their services to the Afghans and fight the Americans, turns out they were used as mine walkers posts that would probably be overrun. They abused them, basically not utilized in the right way. So they left Afghanistan dejected, demoralized, and angry. This really happened. And they came back to Pakistan and wanted to exact a revenge on a soft target. A church in a diplomatic enclave is about as soft target as you're going to get, right? I mean, the enclave was protected by the Pakistani police, but in reality, they breached it and got through and went out. They didn't go after a high security embassy. Our embassies, U.S., especially U.S. Embassy now, is a fortress. But we learned that scar tissue back in the 80s, right? We got to that point where we're not going to be a soft target ourselves, right? And so for me, it was like, okay, I could see why these guys came in, saw diplomats. I'm like, let's go ahead and take them out. There was a good thing about this, that in a bad situation, we did in real life capture the group that supported this bomber. The bomber obviously blew up himself, but it was a suicide bomber. But we also stopped another proposed bombing that was on slate that December during Christmas Eve. There was another church bombing targeted St. Thomas Episcopal Church. There are churches in Muslim countries. In fact, Pakistan, they tried to allow all religions to commingle and live. And this one, we realized we got another tip that this might happen. And the police, being very sharp at that time, and said, you know what, we're not going to allow this happen again. We'll stake out and watch it. And sure enough, they did. And they actually caught the people that were coming in on midnight mass. That to me was the best thing, was be able to, obviously you come to a scene, horrific scene, and you try to do the best you can. But if you can stop something from actually happening, that's the best, right? And so that did happen. So I touched on it a little bit, but it wasn't central to the story per se. But it was really cool. I was really proud of that, and the team, that another person gave us a tip. We took the tip to the police. The police acted on it quickly, which is kudos to them, and they stopped another mass murder.
Well, I mean, first off, incredible that you were able to, take that tip and really implement it with, just enough time, and it all kind of, I guess, worked out, one way or another. And, that just goes to show that, one, anybody in this line of work is able to, help and do the same thing. It's a matter of reassurance, I guess. And, I'm sure that, if somebody were to read this book, they might be more motivated also to, if they ever come across information or to help or that sort of thing, to see that, all intentions are valid and there to help us. I guess that's another benefit of having this book out there.
No, absolutely. And kudos to you guys, the authors of the mission, because they did team me up with an angel writer that was in this genre. And that's what's great. I needed somebody that had experience in this space to be able to work with me to understand that, this is a thriller, but a thriller that actually partially happened, but it was a fiction going forward. And I was very fortunate to be connected to Cody and to work with him. Cody Blocker, yep.
Well, kudos to him. We'll give him a little shout out on the podcast here. So I'm glad that, that experience was positive for you and all of that. I mean, and to anybody listening today, if, you happen to have an idea for a book or an experience that, you want to just get off your chest and share, you don't have to be an expert writer to do so. I mean, there's many services out there that help you edit or write, and Authors on a Mission does offer it all. So thanks for sharing that with us, Mike. I'm glad that we were able to do that for you and sharing your story. But also I know that it definitely was, a challenge, again, to share all of this. So I'm wondering, what advice would you give to other people, in your field, other security professionals who have deep industry knowledge and are considering writing about their experiences? Would you have any advice for people in your shoes, I guess you would say?
Yeah, no. I think you got to have passion, first of all, right? This is not just to punch the clock timesheet and can get out. And you got to have a passion to want to be something bigger than larger than you are, right? To be part of a team, to pay it forward. I look at it as, using my being a student athlete playing football. You are basically part of the team. You're a cog in a wheel, an important cog in a lot of ways, but still you're basically supplying and supporting so you can win. I think this is the case. If you have the passion, if you feel you have a story to reveal that is interesting, or even if it's not interesting and you want to fictionalize it, then spice it up. Absolutely. I think everybody's got to start with their own experience, right? As real as possible, down to the weapons utilized, the exact weapons I personally utilized, to the nomenclature of the weapons, and also what it can do, what it can't do, and also just the ability of the vehicles, the people I've worked with. And I was very fortunate to work with Tier 1 teams, both from Navy and the Army. And these are obviously Navy SEALs. And before, my specialty was with working with the Red Cell. Red Cell is no longer a part of the Navy SEALs. It was a group that was used to breach Navy facilities worldwide. We teamed up with them. No, actually, they teamed up with us to say, hey, listen, we'd love to know more about how U.S. embassies work. In return, we'll teach you how to protect better your U.S. embassies. And we'll even give you, for instance, how we can breach a U.S. embassy and give you. So if you learn how to breach a U.S. embassy, you know how to protect it, right? And their expertise was fantastic. They taught us stuff as we taught them. It was a great synergy. Still to this day, my friends are still work with them and just talk and see how they're doing. And then we also worked with Delta Force, which is totally different mindset, but at the same time, very similar, very similar. You're talking the best of the best, right? And they too want to make sure how a U.S. embassy is protected. A U.S. embassy is basically a forward part of the United States in a foreign land, sometimes in a hostile environment. And if you can protect your diplomats in a hostile environment with the best and the brightest, that with the keys of military, but also with the CIA, with diplomatic security, with the FBI, all working together, there's nothing better. A team that works together in that environment can get a lot done. You can also be offensive, go after people that have gone after us, and you can also be defensive. It's an amazing thing that happens. And I got to experience that in Pakistan during 2001, July through August of 2003. I actually stayed a year extra. I didn't want to give that up because I knew it was pretty special, but obviously I couldn't do it too long because you'll get burned out. Because we did not, after 9/11, we went 7 days a week from September 11th, basically in Pakistan time was September 12th, all the way through mid-February. And the reason why people were allowed to come back, meaning families, only adults but not children, is that they thought it was safe to come back. And I personally didn't think it was safe to come back, but that was not my choice. Washington said, yes, it's okay. You can bring back adults. And that's why we had people in a environment that day in the church when it blew up. And after that event, all families went back, or spouses, or anybody that's not doing a job per se in that embassy. So there's a lot of scar tissue there too. Embassies are built to be a forward-leaning advisory to the United States State Department, but also to the White House, to Justice Department, anybody else that wants to be in that environment.
So I wanted to first, touch upon the fact that, again, I like emphasizing the importance of teamwork here, and it goes to show in any industry, I mean, especially yours as well. You have to balance your roles in addition to everybody else's, work together with it. It seems to be a theme that's come up in your career and also in the book as well. So again, in terms of the writing process, it's great to know that you can embody that and you put it in your story and you're sharing that and you're able to offer those insights to others who are looking to do the same. And one thing that also stood out to me is that you mention you write about the exact equipment you use, the exact techniques and all that. I'm wondering, does that mean you probably didn't have to do too much research in reading the book, or was there still a good amount of fact checking and backup information involved?
Yeah, the back checking to the event, right? The actual event when it was utilized, I knew it pretty well. I mean, having been 26 years in that environment, I did, and then coming back to be the assistant secretary after Benghazi happened to make sure we don't have another Benghazi, gave me latitude to understand. Yeah, but there is some back checking. Absolutely, I wanted to get it right. I want the book. I want when people read the book, I want them to know it either really happened or the environment has what's conducive to employ that fiction, right? The weapons, the cars, the attitudes, the rubs against one another. It really did happen. People are people, human are human, right? And so we're all trying to be on the same team, and 98% of the time it does. But obviously there are some issues that come up. It's just like a family, right? Everybody, your own family, you have issues with your brother or sister, your mom and dad, right? There's that, but you still love them. You still obviously will side with them, and that's what I wanted to capture. I wanted to capture a unique environment where there are people that are on the front wall of diplomacy, but also people that also protect the United States and make sure that everything for the United States that we can do the best for them. We want them getting the best intelligence. We want to bring back the best environment. We don't want us to fall down in that environment.
Yeah, I mean, very important messages there that, you're able to convey to your readers and also, to inspire anybody else who might have had these experiences into sharing it as well. It's incredibly powerful stuff. I'm wondering, if anybody listening today happens to be inspired by these words of wisdom, where might they be able to find out more information about yourself, or if you're, getting in touch with you, staying up to date with your latest comings and going? I'm wondering, would you like to share with us how they can reach out to you?
Yeah, no, listen, it is, I'm very fortunate to have been the assistant secretary for the US. So I grew up as the lowest of the low. I mean, 7-step one when I came on in 1985. I came on in 7-step one, which is no longer, they make sevens. It's always a 6 now, right? So I was that low, $18,000 a year. But then I was brought back to be the leader of the organization. So I think for people to aspire in a lot of ways, I mean, I was fortunate to be there, right? I'm about as humble as you're gonna get because I know what my limitations are, but I also know that what my strengths are, right? There is IQ and there's EQ, emotional quotient and IQ. You should have as strong as an IQ, but even stronger EQ. You have to be sidewalk smart. You have to read a room. You've got to be able to use situational awareness, as we say, understand the environment that you go into and glean from the environment and try to do better each time. For me, I was fortunate. They Wikipedia me and it's like, hey, we've done this. Later on, I was the lead investigator for the sonic attacks in Cuba and also Guangzhou, China, trying to discern who was hitting us and attacking us. A lot of other things. I was head of Condoleezza Rice's protective detail with 100 agents under me, and then being the head of security and intelligence at NATO. So usually it's a U.S. position, it's a billet that's for the United States, and it usually goes to DS. And during that time, We had one of the largest spy cases in NATO history, which I headed and got the permission from the National Security Advisor to President Obama to be able to go after the Russians too. We were just sitting and taking body blows from the Russians. They were stealing from us. We weren't really doing anything. Basically said, hey, we got to make it harder for them to do it. And to make them harder, we have to go after them. So it's basically using common sense. But I was just fortunate to a kid growing up in Vienna, Virginia, outside of Washington, D.C., 13 miles, and being part of the system, the government system that actually works and does a lot for their government and a lot for the country.
Well, honestly, a truly extraordinary experience that you've had in your life, and very inspiring too. It's good to know that you were able to accomplish all of that and have these achievements, and not only that, but it's benefited thousands of people too. Just not only in direct actions, but also that this book is out, you're inspiring even more change too. So really, really incredible stuff. I'm wondering, Mike, do you happen to have a copy of the book with you right now?
Yeah, I do, actually.
Awesome. If you don't mind holding that up for us.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, it's they did a great job. You guys did a great job with the book. It's if you can see it, does it look good?
Hold up a little bit higher.
Yeah, absolutely.
So everybody today, that's the cover. Check it out. It's bright, vibrant. It's got the flag right there, front and center. Amazing stuff. And you can see right from the cover, it kind of embodies the message of the book as a whole. So
it does. It does, and it actually made bestseller list on Amazon. It rose to the bestseller list. I'm very happy for that. So it's pretty cool. And then it's got a biography of myself at the back, which is we were part of the capture of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who was the architect of 9/11, and at the time we were in 2002. So it was just a good time and a good place to be. I was fortunate, right? There's 170 embassies and consulates for the U.S. overseas, and think about it, being there at the epicenter of terrorism at that time was like I won the lottery. I literally do. That's how I think of it, right? I was very fortunate to say, you know what, if you got to put up or you shut up. And it's like, okay, walk the walk. You got to talk the talk. Let's do it. Let's make this happen. And it was a great test, and I'm fortunate to be there. So a lot of what I've had is being fortunate. It's right time, right place, and hope to do that for it. And it is the essence of the book has been captured by folks that would like to stream it on quote Hollywood, right? So we'll see. We're just into talks beginning on the screen.
Well, yeah, awesome. Thank you so much again for sharing that with us. And I'm wondering, do you happen to have any last bits of advice to share with our audience today?
Yeah, don't wait 20 years, 22 years to tell a story. Authors on a Mission made it easy for me. As a first-time author, I wanted it's a white glove, if lack of a concierge system where they basically work with you going forward. It was good on that. There's some other challenges that I've had with them, but we're worked and they've addressed it. But it's for somebody that wants to tell a story, make their brand, put their brand out, or whatever they have. The Authors on a Mission will put people behind it and get you going.
Well, thank you for those kind words. And Michael's telling the truth here. We do offer amazing services. You're able to kind of pick and choose what you need. And thank you for that compliment as well. And, right back at you. You've been an amazing guest on the podcast, and your book really is creating some meaningful change here. So, yeah, thank you for joining us today. It's been a true pleasure.
No, same here. Thank you, Danielle, for having me. It's a great experience, and see what's going in the future. I appreciate it.
Sounds great. So to everybody listening today, what an incredible conversation we just had with Michael Evanoff, author of high value targets. Your insights really do just show us how these experiences can become compelling fiction, but also be absolutely fascinating and have a great deal of impact in our world. So, today, listeners, we learned a lot about teamwork, about balance, about not just talking the talk, but walking the walk, and along with that, many other insights and tips as well. So if you also want to experience the authentic world of embassy operations and counterterrorism, you can find How About You on Amazon and other major book retailers. Again, Michael, thank you for sharing your story, and also thank you so much for your service to our country. We are honored to have you on here, and we would love to have you back in the future for more updates. And to everybody listening today, check out our other episodes. Keep leading, keep inspiring, and keep writing. That's all for today. Thank you for listening.
This is Danielle Hutchinson reminding you that somewhere, someone needs the book that only you can write. Visit authorsonmission.com to start your legacy. Until next time, keep leading, keep inspiring, and keep thinking in chapters. Have a great day.